Snyderman, and this is Conversations on Creating to Heal. And today I'm really excited to be speaking with Noah Dundas in Felton, California. Noah is a poet and author, as well as a mixed media artist and a medical mystery. And his story is more than 20 years of constant changes, challenges, and searching for answers to this mystery. Welcome, Noah.
Hi, Lisa. Great to be here with you.
Yeah, thank you. So let's talk a little bit about you. I said you wore a couple of different hats. And do you perhaps have a short mission or a purpose for why you're doing what you do?
Yeah, well, basically, I became sick about 20 years ago. I started on this journey, and I just wanted to. I did some art forms before. I've written basically my whole life, poetry and not too many short stories. But then once I got sick, I decided to go into writing a lot more, and it started with these series of poems and mixed media stuff I was doing. And then I moved away from my hometown of Santa Cruz, and I was inland with up in Portland and I was abducted by a group of writers up there who were these really fabulous people that called themselves the Dangerous Writers, led by Tom Spanbauer, who has written a bunch of books. And probably one of the most famous books that came out of that group was the book called The Fight Club, which was made into the movie with Brad Pitt. And
Yeah.
so I was hanging out with those people, and as they always tell you in writing, write what you know. And so I grew up surfing down here in Santa Cruz, and so I was dealing with my own illness, and right when I got sick, two of my best friends died of sort of mysterious illnesses as well. And so I guess with my newfound morbid sense of reality in the world, I thought, wow, that would be a really great story to write a book from the perspective of the person who's dying and his best friend has just died. So I started this book. I called it Kicking Out. And since then, I've changed around a lot of things about the book, but it's still basically a story about two boys coming of age, growing up surfing and dealing with their own issues in life, adolescence and coming of age in the surfing world. It's basically a coming of age story, as all other coming of age stories are, but it takes place in the surfing world instead of a prep school on the East Coast or something like that.
What an interesting experience. That seems like it led you to create your story. Let's go back a little bit. So take us back to your journey with illness. Maybe paint a picture for the viewers a little bit about what this is like for you, because everybody goes through different things. And I think people to understand what you experience, and what kind of transformation that may have happened as a result of your illness.
Yeah, well, that's a great question. For me, it was, any illness is, of course, a traumatic change to anybody's life. So I'm not here to say, oh, mine was worse than anybody else's. But it was a really hard transition for me because I was really young. I was 26, and I had been a really active, I was an athlete my whole life. And so like I said, I'd surfed for probably 20 years up to that point. I had started surfing when I was like 5 years old, and I'd won lots of contests. I surfed professionally for a little while, and so to all of a sudden not be able to lift my arms over my head or get out of a chair was a huge transformation. And so
was it something that happened as a gradual, and did you find out a diagnosis quickly, or was this something that took a long time to get to for you?
Yeah, well, I was misdiagnosed right away. So that's been sort of the other mystery. That's why I call myself a medical mystery, is that um, 20 years into this, I'm still in the exact same place I was when I started. Like, they still have no idea
Wow.
really what I have or why I have it. There's nobody in my family who's ever had any illness. I was never sick a day in my life up to this point. And, um, there's nobody in our family with any autoimmune diseases or anything. So
And
the close,
what is it that you have, or what did they think that you had?
well, the closest they can say now is that I have some sort of necrotizing myopathy. Um,
Can you
and
explain a little bit what that means for people?
yeah, so basically it means that they don't know what exactly, but it's killing the muscle cells in my body for some reason.
Yeah.
And, so basically the effects of that has been that it has destroyed all the muscles in my shoulders and in my hips. And so um, I am now in a wheelchair and I can't walk anymore. But that's only been like the last couple of years that's been. So I was doing a lot of alternative healing and stuff like that before, or I still do. Um, but yeah, that's
Yeah, no, I think that is very important for people to understand that that's kind of the day-to-day for you, and that it's even much more significant, that you've turned to your art, because it's very hard to cope. And what does art do for you? So how is it that creating, when you're working on poetry, when you're working on your book, what is it that it does that maybe enables you not to have to face and focus on the illness?
well, I guess, for one, it allows me really in a way to be, since all my stuff is pretty much centered around the ocean. Yeah,
Wow.
it allows me to be in the ocean again without actually being there. So,
Yeah.
like for instance, with the book, that was written primarily while I was in Portland, and so I wasn't ever near the ocean, and I wasn't near where the book was being written about. So it was sort of my way of being back home near my friends, um, hanging out, checking the waves again. And so, because that's sort of what surfers do every day, is we go down, we wake up 6 o'clock in the morning, you go down to the cliffs and you hang out with your friends and you talk about the different places you might go surfing and what's going on in your lives. And so I didn't really have any way to do that anymore. And so it was a way to get back to that place and to find um, a sense of, I don't know, what the ocean gave to me, a sense of calmness in, in the eye of the storm, so to speak. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that you describe that so poetically in a lot of ways. It's still allowing you to be involved in what you're passionate, what you care about, what stirs your soul, even though you may not be able to be there directly. It's your way of tapping in, it sounds like. So I want to invite you to share a little piece of your art, and maybe it's a poem, maybe it's part of your book. And maybe afterward, just talk a little bit about why you're choosing these passages.
Basically, my journey with the art and illness started um, with these poems, and sort of doing a mixed medium. And I had gone to an exhibit at MoMA in San Francisco, and it was the Yoko Ono exhibit back in 2000, and she was showing all of her different artworks and stuff she had done from back in the 60s. And I, of course, am too young to have actually seen that stuff. And so I went to this exhibit and I was just blown away by these different things that she had there. And one of them was these books of poems. And you go and you pick them up and they were like literally the thing that it said it was. So it was like a book just of hair, and then there's like a book like with feathers, and it sort of got to me the idea that words are the thing themselves. They aren't just pieces. They aren't just words. They aren't something that you print on a piece of paper. They are the embodiment of the thing itself. And so that's when I started. Okay, well, I started doing these poems, and like I said, trying to recreate this feeling of being in the ocean and on the water and along the cliffs, because that's in Santa Cruz. That's what everybody does, is you walk along the cliffs. And so I started with that, with these poems, and it actually, I guess, started in UCSF because I was up there in the cancer ward, and from up there you can actually look out over the whole San Francisco Bay. It's a pretty amazing view. And so I would see these sometimes when the waves were really, really big, you could see this surf break that I'd always read about my whole life that breaks way out past the Golden Gate, like in the middle of the bay. It's called Potato Patch, and it only breaks once in a great while. Yeah. And so I saw it breaking, and this spawned this poem in my head I called Big Surf Days. And so I then went along the cliffs in Santa Cruz and took pictures at different places along, and then Photoshop those with these lots of different cool effects and colors and stuff like that. And then transpose the poem or sections of the poem over those.
Well, do you want to do a quick reading of the passage? We're almost out of time. So
okay, so I'll read from the book. It's the first page of my book called Kicking Out. Chapter 1, Coming Right at Me. Yarp! First time I saw Lucas, he was coming right at me. Sitting on the old wood fence that helped protect tours from a saltwatery grave, I was down at our old surfing spot, Sandstones. Back then, I was the new kid in town, taller than everyone else, a giant. And Lucas, flying up on his old rusted out 10-speed, the northwest winds blew against his back, made him go even faster. Behind him, the red brick lighthouse swayed in the waves of heat coming up off the asphalt. Down hard on the back lever of his brake, his back tire did a perfect 180 slide, stopping just inches from the white wall tire of my own bike. Thick cloud of cliff dust flew up in the air. Tiny pebbles hit my leg. Whole thing looked like when you're surfing and you turn hard off the bottom of the wave and your board points up towards the top. You ride that rush of speed up towards the top of the wave, and as you glide over the curling lip, you throw your back leg out and you slide back down over the wave sideways. Way Lucas did on land was he timed the yarp so that he was coming right at you on the Y and throwing his back tire into the slide on the Oz, stopping on the last R, dismounting and standing up on the last P. A 180 tail slide is what most people called it. A yarp is what Lucas called it.
Thank you. Thank you for that. It's neat to get a flavor and a sense. You draw me into the world instantly, so thank you. So before we go, this is a hard question, no, because there's a lot of things I'm sure in 20 years that you've picked up, but what's one thing that you might want to leave the viewers with that is maybe a life lesson or a mantra for you that helps you get through?
Yeah, well, I'll say I stole this one from somebody else, by another author, surfer guy named Sean Thompson. And he says that everything you've ever learned, you learned from the ocean, and that it prepared you for it. And I feel that that's really true. And that is just going with the flow. Like, you have to just be able to let go of all your preconceptions of everything else, of where you should be in life, where, the Buddhists call it all ego. And it's really true. It's all this ego attachment, your house, your health, your body, all these things are all transitory things that change. And when you get sick, you really have to live that philosophy. And the less you fight against it, it's just like, like I said, the surfing in the ocean, it's like a rip current, a rip tide. You can't fight against the rip tide. You have to let it, you have to go with it until it lets you go, and then you can make your path.
Well, thank you on those words. Yeah, go with the flow and don't fight it. Thank you, Noah, for coming on to Conversations on Creating to Heal.
Well, thank you so much for doing this and having me with you.